Do we have Ms. Kemp or Commissioner Rawls? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
If anyone has a contact for Ms. Kemp, can you send that out and make sure she's available if you have it? Okay. I think we're ready. Give me 2 seconds. I want to see if I get a response back. All right, we've called. I'm going to go ahead and start this meeting. We'd like to welcome everyone to our City of Palatka August 10th Community Redevelopment Agency meeting. This is our budget workshop. At this time, we're going to have our invocation and our pledge of allegiance. I'm going to ask Chief Grimes. I see you on here, Chief. Will you lead us in the invocation and the pledge?
Yes, sir, but my camera's not working. Is that okay? Heavenly Father, thank you for bringing us here today. Thank you for this agency as they're going to meet and make the best decisions they can. Give them easy thought processes to bring things to your glory, Lord. Thank you for our community. Thank you for our commissioners, our administrations, Lord. Make them make decisions in your will. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Chief, thank you very much for that invocation and for our pledge. Has everyone had an opportunity to review the minutes from our June 8th meeting? I'm sorry, before we get into that, let me do roll call first. Commissioner, Vice Mayor Brown?
Present.
Commissioner Campbell?
Present.
Commissioner Borum?
Present.
Commissioner McCaskill,
Here.
Commissioner Rawls,
I'm here.
Ms. Kemp. So for the record, we have one absence and we have a quorum. And so if someone can again try to reach Ms. Kemp just to make sure, we will move forward with the agenda at this time. So moving on, also we have the approval of the minutes from our July 23rd budget workshop. Has everyone had an opportunity to review the minutes from both the June 8th meeting as well as the July 23rd budget workshop?
Motion to approve.
Second.
So motion on the floor in a second.
I got a
Yes.
question. Well, I got a comment at least. I can vote on the June 8th, but I had an excuse absent for July 23rd meeting. So
You can
I won't be voting on that one.
still vote on the minutes approval. You don't have to be present for that.
Yeah, I don't know what occurred, so I just prefer not to vote on the 7/23/20 meeting, and I will vote on the June 8th meeting.
Very well, duly noted. You got to fill out an extension with the council, so it's duly noted. Any further unreadiness on the motion that's on the floor? Seeing none, questions called. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any opposition? Motion carries unanimously. And again, Commissioner Borum, we send our condolences to you and our love from the community.
Certainly appreciate it. Thank you much.
Moving on to public comments. Public comments will be available in the chat. They'll also be available by calling 386-329-0100. If there's any public comment on topics of discussion, if there are any public comments on issues that are not on the agenda at this time for general public comment, please call in 386-329-0100 or leave your comments in the chat room. No action will be taken on the topics of discussion. Is there anyone here for public comment? Seeing no one, we'll go ahead and close public comment unless there's a comment in the chat. Okay, we will close public comment at this time. I have one chat. Nothing at this time. So we'll close public comment. We'll move on to our other business. Item number 1 is staff direction on business-specific waste signage, Old City Drug sign, and the electronic reader sign at 3rd Street Gateway. Ms. Tucker or Mr. Griffith?
Yes, sir, I'll be taking this one. Just 1 second. I apologize. I had just finished reaching out to the quilt shop to try to get a hold of Miss Kemp, as I don't have a cell phone number. They're going to try to get the message to her, so maybe she'll be able to join us soon. Okay. Oh, sorry, I appear to be out of focus. I'm just going to turn my video off. So I'm going to start with the business-specific wayfind signage. You had asked me to come back with some more information at a previous meeting. The entire program of 1 sign unit per block, and that each sign pole per block could have 6 of the sign blades on it, and each blade is double-sided, so up to 12 businesses per pole. The entire 11 block area could be done for $8,690 approximately, or a little under $900 per block. The program would, however, require a change or a variance in the current off-sign signage ordinance. Okay, so I'm just looking for direction there as to whether or not this is a program that you'd like me to pursue in the next year.
Any comments from the agency as it relates to the wayfinding? If no one's going to jump in, I'll go ahead and say, I think it's, we've been talking about this for a number of years. I think it's time for us to look at pulling the trigger on this project. I'm in favor of the agency making the recommendation to the commission to make the appropriate amendments to put that in place. Mr. Holmes, do you have anything else that you want to add?
I do not.
Any comments from the agency?
Motion to approve.
All right. So
Second.
there's a motion to approve. Who made the second? It sounded like I heard two people.
I did. Commissioner Campbell or Mr. Commissioner Rawls.
Either one.
All right, so we'll take Commissioner Campbell since he spoke up first. Motion's made by Commissioner Boer, second by Commissioner Rawls for staff to move forward and make the recommendation to the commission. Is there any further discussion on this matter? Seeing none, questions called. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. So moving on to item B, Ms. Tucker. I'm sorry, to the second phase of this question.
Yes, so the Old City drug sign, in the packet was some previous correspondence and documents relating to that. This predated my tenure with the city. So as best I understand it, any business advertised on that sign has to be within that block of the two Herald-owned properties at the time per code. So I think, again, this also would, in order for anybody else to be on that sign, it would take a change in that ordinance as well.
Any questions?
I got a question. Specifically, like, what is it that we're looking to do with that?
So at a previous meeting, the board directed me to find out more information about that sign. There was some question as to how the sign was acquired and who could advertise on it or not. That's I really didn't have much more direction than that, just to find out the information about the sign.
I think the other question that was asked, Commissioner, was to also look at that sign as a viable option for electronic signage as well.
Right. Well, it says we have to use it. It has to be used for two of the Herald-owned properties. Is that still required?
Make it unless you make a change.
No, I'm sorry. I'm having a hard time hearing. What did you say?
That's the recommend. That's why she's making the recommendation also that we change.
Okay. So that it would anybody could advertise on it, not just those two properties.
Right, correct. And just for the record, Ms. Kemp has joined us.
Yes, sir. And I do have a question, if that's possible.
Right on time.
Sir?
Go ahead.
About, I think it was 6 months ago, I believe that staff were directed to update and revise the off-site signage code. And it was never brought back to the CRA because unless the off-site signage code is revised, then no one other than the folks on that section of the 300 block could use that sign.
That's what we're discussing right now. And so the discussion is, you came right in on time though. The question was, the recommendation from staff was to make was that we would need to make a recommendation to the commission to change the code in order for there to be permissible off-site signage for people other than the two businesses that were in that block.
Okay. Thank you.
And just so that you know, on the previous item, we voted to basically make the same recommendation for a change in the sign ordinance so that, Ms. Robinson, we can hear you. And so we also made a recommendation that, Ms. Robinson, can you mute? So just for the record, we made a recommendation with the wayfinding signage for the poles with, I think, the 8 or 9 slots, that we actually make that we also look at modifying the code to the sign ordinance so that it will be permissible, and to move forward with that at the $8,000+ cost.
Thank you.
Okay. And so as it relates to this item, are there any more questions as it relates to the old Morris drugstore sign?
I just looking for some clarity here. So if the ordinance is changed, then the restriction to have just the 2 Harold-owned properties on there is lifted, correct?
Recommendation is for it to be lifted, and council, they will bring us back a modification so that restriction is lifted.
Okay. I'm good.
Is that your understanding as well, Ms. Tucker?
That's something that I would need to run by Ms. Thomas, just to make sure. There's a lot of legal documents within that aspect of the Old City drug sign. So I would want to be certain that I'm not an attorney, that wasn't part of the sale of the parking lot to the city. Does that make sense?
May I speak, Mr. Mayor?
Sure.
There's an email in your package that references some communication that occurred in 2016 involving Mr. Nelson, Mr. Griffith, Ms. Sprouse, and Terry Suggs. There apparently was conversation in the minutes of the meeting by which the city agreed to purchase the parking lot, that the sign at issue could remain, and actually would be retained by the Heralds. However, there was never a contract or a warranty deed for the transaction, just the minutes of the meeting. And so at that time, there was some discussion about whether or not the Heralds maintained control of that sign. And I think that's what Ms. Tucker is referencing. Is that right, Ms. Tucker?
Yes, sir, it is.
That's where I'm going with my point. Is it seems like there's a requirement, but if I didn't know if that's going to be lifted, and so be it.
It looks like we need to have a conversation with the Heralds as well to make sure that everybody's on the same page.
I would agree.
So should we postpone this vote or move it to another time certain until after we get the clarification?
I think you can make the motion contingent upon approval, and if not, it's going to die just based on the fact that there may be some deficiency in how we were able to proceed. So if it's,
I would make that motion because we need to move this thing forward, honestly.
my understanding is that we're making the motion to move forward with the permissible signage, with the permissible signage changes recommended by staff, and also to direct staff to have a conversation with the Heralds and recommend to the commission, if so available, that we change the ordinance so that it's allowable to have more than just the 2 signs on there if necessary.
Second.
Yep.
Okay, that's the motion. It's a second by Commissioner Borum. Council, you see any problems with the motion? I'm sorry, former council. Mr. Manager.
I do not see a problem with the motion.
Okay, just trying to make sure. So we got the motion in place. There's a second on the floor. Any further discussion from the commission? Seeing none from the agency. Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposition? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Okay, Ms. Tucker.
Okay, so as directed or as asked at a previous meeting, I reached out to Design and got a quote for the electronic reader sign at the 3rd Street Gateway, assuming that the board would still want the sign to be placed on the brick pedestal that's existing there that we believe is already wired. The sign would still exceed the procurement threshold. So basically, I'm seeking direction as if you want me to move forward to advertise the project as an invitation to bid.
I guess I'm of the opinion that it's time to move it forward. I see the sketch in here. I had some conversations as allowed by this agency, also with Mr. Hodge as it relates to where we are. The only request that I would have is that we also look at placing that sign a little bit higher, just in case there's some individual who happens to be riding riding a bicycle or anything else that may exceed that standing height that's there for liability purposes. So I would say that looking at possibly maybe even placing it towards the top of the cap of that sign, anchoring it from that standpoint if possible. But that's those are all technical issues we can deal with as we advertise it.
I have a question.
Yes.
The proposal from Designs, is this, are we going to put this out on the street?
Yeah,
So is this the basis of design? Is that what I'm seeing, or?
no, that was the question, and that was my comment. I think this is just a concept that was put out. I thought we had we'd gotten some quotes that were in excess of our procurement, of our $25,000 on our procurement threshold, and we were trying to get something that was going to be more in line with what we were looking at from a cost perspective. I know we had an allocation of $60,000 at one point for wayfinding and also for this sign, and then we shrunk it down, hoping that we would find something a little different. But I think, I don't know, my position is that we need to look at maybe even a design build, and that may be the easiest way to get the concepts in place, given the location and letting someone give us an idea based upon putting the bid on the streets as to where we are.
I think design build is going to be your quickest and your most cost effective. But when I saw this, I was really confused that there's just so much lack of specificity to it. And I looked at the quote, I was like, man, there's no way I can act on this. But if y'all were just looking for a basis, that I guess we have some semblance of a basis, but I think we should, if we're going to put this up for design bid, or design build rather, have a minimum pixel count on the sign itself, so we don't get technology that's 3 or 4 years old. I know we may not be able to afford next year's technology, but there might be some good deals out there on signage that has really high resolution, or at least be prepared to have know what minimum resolution we will accept. But I was really perplexed when I saw the design and the written proposal. It just had nothing.
And also, I think you also want to look at the capability as well. That's a good point, Commissioner Ross. But also look at the technical capabilities of interfacing with the signs or what have you. And long as this is not being outdated, and that's a good thing in terms from a life cycle standpoint.
Right.
Any other comments from the agency? All right. So can both of you two tech guys make sure you get the scopes of what you want in place to the rest of us technologically challenged folks? Can you get that stuff over to staff if we deem it appropriate to move forward, so that they'll know what things you want from a technical standpoint?
I can give you an example real quick. There's a sign that was put up by College Park Baptist Church. When you drive by in the middle of the daytime, when it's bright, you can't see it at all. There was a sign put up by an attorney right up the street from the city hall. It's really nice. You can see it all times of the day and night. So, the differences are the resolution. And I know we can save money, but you may put a sign up that can't be seen in the brighter times of the day.
Good point.
Any other comments from the agency? Any comments from staff?
Yes, sir. In the past, I've spoken with a couple of different companies, and I brought those information to previous board meetings. The price here, like Commissioner Rawls stated, is really in the electronic equipment. So in every time I've gotten the quotes, I've been very careful to get the appropriate size with pixel count of the boards, and it takes 2 when facing in each direction. You can do 2 that mimic each other, or you can do 2 that can show 2 different things on each side. So we would be very careful, and I would be sure to keep those good minimum levels to ensure that the sign would be legible from the street. no matter what time of day.
We don't have anything else at this point. What's the agency's pleasure in moving forward? Commissioner Ross.
I'd love to see it move forward. I'd make a motion that we move this forward and keep it going.
Direct staff to do, is that motion to direct staff to do design bill, to put out as a design bill?
Yeah, I would, yeah, I'll revise it. Make a motion that we have staff put this out for a design build. I'm getting a lot of feedback for some reason. Can y'all hear me?
We hear the feedback.
Okay, put this out for design build, and with an emphasis on the visibility of the sign during the daytime hours, and try to get as high quality sign as possible.
I second it, but second it with, I guess, and the amendment that making sure working with whoever win the bid that that is specified in the write-up. I think that will help us out in terms of making sure that it performs based on different varying conditions.
I would like to ask about maintenance.
Hold on 1 second. Hold on. I got a motion on the floor in a second. I need to understand what your amendment is again, Commissioner, just so we can have it stated properly in the minutes.
Right. The amendment would be with the design bill that it would meet the criteria for visibility, irregardless of daylight or nightlight, or sun variation, so that it's visible during various conditions, weather conditions.
Is that okay with you, Commissioner Ross?
Absolutely.
Duly noted. We got a motion on the floor in a second. Any further discussion, Ms. Kemp?
My concern is maintenance of the sign and the type of warranty and support you would get in case of any technical problems or issues. That should be built into the contract of whoever's awarded the build.
So we could make a requirement of staff to have a minimum. I don't know that you're going to get more than a 1-year warranty on your workmanship. That's typical in Florida, and typically you get a 1 year on parts and labor. But anything that the manufacturer would offer would pass through to us as well. But I personally would be satisfied if we got at least a 1 year warranty, and to her point, maybe some sort of maintenance agreement.
But if I could, that you're also buying intellectual property, you're buying software. There should be some sort of support and maintenance to go with that software that runs that sign, and the ability to upgrade it in the future. So I think that should come as part of the intellectual property agreement.
That's a good point.
You're over my head with that. I'm a building a software person.
Seems to be that there's.
You bring the motion in for a landing.
Yeah, seems to be also include additional score. I guess you're saying we can have something in our staff. You understand what she's saying, right, Ms. Tucker?
Yes, sir, I do.
Okay.
It's a good valid point.
Okay. All right. Duly noted, Ms. Kemp. Any other discussion? I don't even think we need to include it in the motion, Commissioner, because the minutes are going to reflect it. And I think Ms. Tucker is going to know when she's writing the scope what she has. Any other discussion? Concerns? Seeing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And so, again, you have the scope, Ms. Becker. Anything else for item 1? Ms. Tucker, I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry. Item 1, that is the end of item 1.
Moving to item 2, CRA 723 St. John's Avenue purchase, public park design approval for public park, pocket park and parking lot.
Yes, sir. This is the dirt lot that's next to River City Antiques and across from the old sports bar on St. John's Avenue. Previously, the owner has leased it to the city in the past. However, the owner reached out to see if the city or the CRA had any interest in purchasing the lot. Improvements could be made about the same time as the adjacent St. John's Avenue streetscape project. The lot itself yields about 9 parking spaces. You can see from the illustration about how many you could get in there. Staff reached out to a real estate agent to see what the current value in the market would be for the lot, and the estimation was between 7,000 to 10,000. However, the owner of the lot, I believe his price that he said he was interested in was 32,500. I'd have to double check my emails for that. But so basically, I just need direction as to whether or not you would, the board would like me to get back with the owner and what price you would want to pay if you even want to purchase the lot.
You said 32,000. Did you say 32,500?
I did. Let me double check my email to make sure that that's not wrong, but that's what I remember.
Mr. Mayor, that came from an unsolicited offer from the owner, directed to me, asking if the city wished to purchase the lot and citing a price. I thought it was in the $30,000 range. It might have been $32,500, but in any event, it's substantially more than what we've been advised that the value of the lot is. So since it is was an offer, after talking to Jonathan about whether or not it would give any value, we next put it to you to see if there was any interest, and if there is, but at a lower price, we'll make a counter offer, and if there's not any interest in moving forward, then we'll just advise the owner accordingly.
Mr. Mayor, the tax assessment on the property is almost $21,000. So, while I don't know that 32,000 is a fair number, 10,000 is half of what he's paying taxes on, and there really wasn't an appraisal done. It's just a BPO basically.
Yeah.
I've got some property I'll sell for the tax, for what I'm paying taxes on it too, if you'd like.
Yeah, right.
So,
but personally, from what I've seen lately on real estate transactions, real estate's selling north of assessed value, not for less. And this is on St. John's Avenue commercial. I don't know how you would value that.
I guess the first question is, what's the interest of the agency in purchasing that property? Just to give the history, 5 years ago, I would say we approved spending $5,000 to put to brick the property, put brick pavers on the property, and create a pocket park, and that never came to fruition for several reasons. And so at some point, we saw a benefit in having a pocket park in that area and having additional parking. And so it's just a matter of seeing what the pleasure of this agency is at this time. Is there any interest in exploring this, this unsolicited offer?
I guess one question I have is, what is the value to the community of how is your desire for the CRA to start looking at doing small pocket parks like that within the CRA? And is that the direction? Because I've only been on the CRA for a year now, but is that the direction the CRA has been heading?
So a few years back, I can say when we first got on the commission, there was a there have been recommendations to have a park at park, and the concept have been put together. That's kind of the drawing that you see in place inside of your in your agenda packet.
Yeah, I'm looking right now.
That was the concept that was put there before. It would allow for smaller scale dining event, outdoor dining, or any other events as well within the downtown area. And it just created, I think, some additional options for us at the time. We find ourselves in just at the beginning of a large total streets project for St. John's Avenue. And if we're going to have this conversation, it's probably the perfect time to have it if it's going to be a part of the St. John's Avenue project. And so I'm pretty sure the owner's aware that that project is coming down the loop. And here we are.
I have a question, Mr. Mayor. Can I ask what the width of that property is and whether or not it would be usable for anything other than a pocket park or parking lot? I guess my question is, in assessing its value, is it a buildable lot?
0.12 of an acre. It's 100 feet deep.
So is it over 60 feet wide?
It looks like it's 60 feet wide if I'm reading that right. 44,000 an acre.
The GIS website had it measured as 50 feet of north, so yeah, about 50 feet east, and then 100 feet. So maybe 50 by 100. To be certain, I would say I'd need to go out and measure it with a wheel.
You said 50 by 100?
I believe so, yes, but I'm going off of an old GIS screenshot, and I believe it's different numbers than the tax assessor's page.
Do we have anybody to survey, like from a survey agency?
I don't have a survey of it.
I think they're just looking at the GI. They're looking at the GIS.
I'm reading the legal description. It says it's 50 feet. So it is 50 by 100. And, with side setbacks and front setbacks and all that, it's not going to leave you much unless you can say that it's a non-conforming lot and you're going to build zero lot line building a building like everything's built downtown anyways.
Based on our current ordinance, 60 by 100 is the buildable lot minimum, right?
Right. But these are all non-conforming anyways. And I just what's going through my mind is this: if it's important to the CRA and the direction that we're heading, maybe we need to try to enter into a meaningful negotiation for the property, and if it's something we want to hold and have and make a park for the citizens. Maybe we could offer them $20,000 and see if we can get it for that.
I have a question.
Yes,
In the CRA development plan for the central district, was this considered in the plan? Is this part of the plan? How does it comply with what the improvements that we're trying to do in the central district? Was this even considered?
recent plans.
Yes, the current plans. I know that we're developing more, but in the current plan, was it even considered for the central district?
I can tell you 5 years ago it was considered.
Okay.
And it hadn't, and we've had the conversations probably up to 2 years ago. Mr. Griffith and Ms. Tucker, you want to chime in as well?
Yes, sir, I
Yes.
can. I got this, Mandy. In regards to the plan, it really depends on the end use, Ms. Kemp. If the CRA was to instruct us to, as Mr. Rawls suggested, enter into meaningful negotiations, we would have to look at acquiring this property to fulfill components of the plan, be it additional public parking downtown, be it park enhancements or public space improvements for the streetscape corridor. Those are just some specific examples that would comply with the plan.
But so this specific lot the mayor says that 5 years ago it was considered. Was it considered this specific lot?
It was,
I have to admit, I don't know whether there is a parking issue on that block or not. If there's a parking issue in that area, if there's a public need that we're trying to address, I'm trying to understand what the public need is.
I think I remember it was supposed to be in a pocket park or whatever, and it was supposed to be, I think, completed back in July a couple years ago. That I remember. I don't ever remember it being for a parking lot. And anytime you're doing CRA, normally you would have it in the plan before you can actually execute, my understanding, unless you run it through your attorney for the, or the city manager for clarification on what you can do with those funds.
Right. So the question is, all right, it's not just the $32,500 the person wants. It's whatever else the city has to pay to create the park or create the parking and to do the landscaping. So it's not just $32,000 you're considering. It's what the full cost is, which I don't see that anywhere. That, okay, if we bought this lot, we agreed we're going to buy this lot. How much are we going to buy it for, and what's it going to cost to bring it to fruition? That's not laid out so that you can see what the full scope is. Buying it is just the first step.
so just to kind of give you an idea, the original plan with this, outside of what you see, there's a diagram again in your packet, which shows, based on my memory, which shows the number of additional parking spaces you could acquire. Part of the concept of the parking of the pocket park was that you had the additional spaces for parking, but you also had the secondary use for the property as well, which included place for sitting and seating and all the other things that went along with that, the ancillary benefits of the property. And so, look, you were netting roughly 6 new parking spaces based upon the way it was set up. But you also had additional space for dining, for tables, for sitting, for a whole bunch of other things, and even for smaller gatherings based upon those things that were there. The number that we allocated in the past just to brick that area in, using at that time brick that was available to the city from other areas, was $5,000 to re-brick that area. And that was something that was going to be done in-house based upon my memory. And so that was kind of the thought process. The remaining cost would be what plants or furnishings you put out there as well, whether it was park benches or you put additional shrubbery and things of that nature in place. Is that a pretty accurate depiction, Mr. Griffith?
Yes, sir. The only thing I would add, and I think you touched on it, was kind of a blend between a parking area and a pocket park. And Ms. Kemp, I will add that on page 53 of the CRA plan, it does call for the creation of strategically located pocket parks between the 100 block and the railroad tracks. And while I can't give you the exact page number, there is another recommendation within the central district that recommends additional creation of public parking.
Okay, just to be clear, I'm not against the park, or I'm not against the idea at all. I just want the cost. The point is, the cost of purchasing the land is not the total cost, and there's no sort of summation of what we think it's going to. If we bought it and said we're going to turn it into a parking area, then this is about what we think we could put into it. That might help us understand how much we would be willing to pay for this particular piece of land if we knew what our total investment was going to be in it. I personally think 32.5 is too high, but that's my opinion. So,
And this commissioner board,
just 1 second, Commissioner. Vice Mayor Brown has a comment about the pocket park. Vice Mayor, you have a comment? Ms. Brown?
Do I touch this?
Hear you. She's unmuted. You can go ahead. What's your comment? Oh, we can't hear. We can't hear you.
Hold on.
Wait a minute. You too close.
Oh, you guys are getting that in.
When we talked about it the last time, the area was busier. It had more activities in the stores and buildings down there. And they thought that that would be a good idea to do it. I'd like to find out what the cost would be if we turned it into something else too before we look at purchase.
Thank you. Commissioner Bohr?
Yes, I mean, the mayor was spot on about the 5,000 for the improvement, but at the time we weren't even, I don't think we were looking at purchasing that at the time. I think the 5,000 were for those pavers and everything else that would have completed that pocket part. And you know, I guess the thing that's hanging in the balance is purchasing that property. And like Ms. Kemp was saying, you know, what is our total cost and what are we trying to do now? Because it seems like some of the plan has changed as it related to what it's originally going to be used for. And I do know we got some new downtown plans, but shifting to what's new, it wasn't part of what was the original plan.
We have our CRA administrators on tap for this call.
Are you referring to SNME, the consultant?
Yeah, I see Mr. Jones on.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
You have any comments, Mr. Jones?
The acquisition of public open space is something that the CRA should consider. It's very hard to acquire additional open space and public space in an urban area, and the opportunity is very infrequent when it does present itself. I concur with the commissioner's opinion with regards to the unknown costs, and I would want to know those costs before you make a decision. So it would be a conditional opportunity that requires additional research, but I would strongly recommend looking into it.
Questions from the agency after hearing Mr. Jones's comments?
Do what?
Any questions from the agency after hearing Mr. Jones's comments?
I think we should move forward with this and have a conversation with the owner, see what we can do. I think you're probably looking at between $35,000 and $45,000 to improve the property once you own it. But like Mr. Jones just said, getting the property, if it fits the intent of the CRA, is going to be the most valuable portion.
This is, as I said previously, I think that I'm not objecting to anything that would enhance the experience in downtown Palatka. And I just came back, I just got in from North Carolina and Georgia, where I went to some touristy spots, and it was really nice how they had sitting areas and they were landscaped well, very inviting, and lots of tourists really enjoyed it. So I'm not opposed to it. What I'm cautious about is investing too much maybe in the property that it becomes difficult for us to realize the full value of what we're wanting to do there with the pocket park and possibly more parking. I think that we need to be very cautious about how much we spend on the vacant land so that we can use our taxpayers' dollar wisely to really enhance the beauty of downtown Palatka.
Mr. Griffith, Ms. Tucker, is it possible that we're able to tie in the acquisition of this property into the St. John's Avenue project?
Yes, sir, it is. It's also a possibility that we could negotiate the purchase contingent on board approval and finalize the cost estimate for the property simultaneously and be back before you at the next CRA meeting.
That makes
That sounds like the best recommendation so far.
I'm sorry, who would do the negotiations for the cost of the land? Do we have someone with expertise on our staff that can, understands the value of the real estate and can do a really good job negotiating for us?
I think we got multiple people on this staff that have done super jobs on negotiations.
So we can expect our city mayor and our manager to do a great job negotiating this price down, right?
I don't know if anybody can out negotiate Jonathan Griffith, but I think staff has the capabilities based upon past experiences along with the city manager to handle it without even my input in it.
I got a question real quick. This A1A Rentals Incorporated, do they own any other property in Putnam County or in the city limits?
They own one other parcel, Commissioner Rawls, behind 712 St. John's Avenue. It's kind of catty-cornered across St. John's Avenue. It's 0.03 acres and it has no street frontage. It's vacant.
So does it sound like they're just trying to get out of Palatka?
Would have to look to see who's the registered or managing member of A1A Rentals to see if they're holding any properties under a different name. But if you were to make the assumption that that's their only entity and they own two small vacant parcels, one without frontage and one with, that's kind of my guess.
Okay.
Here at staff's recommendation, as well as the recommendation from Mr. Jones as well. Is there a motion at this time?
I would like to see the staff move forward with negotiating a price and if they can come up with a concept and a price of development as well, that would be fun.
Contingent upon board approval, correct?
Yes.
Second.
For a second, is there any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Mr. Mayor, before we go into reports, Ms. Becker had an item she'd like to bring to your attention under other business regarding actually the timing of a budgetary item. So Ms. Logan, can you hear me?
Hi, yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, yes. So thank you. I just wanted to let the board know that after we met at the budget workshop, we did have a revision of a project that actually is housed in one of our Better Place fund. However, we budgeted this current fiscal year for a city match from the TIF fund South District to go into the Better Place. Timing has changed on that project. We will actually expense all of the grant first, and then we will go into the city match money, which means the amount will still be the same. However, you will see it presented in next fiscal year's budget. So I just wanted to let everybody know that the amounts did not change. However, instead of seeing it in proposed current year expenditures, you're going to actually see it on next fiscal year budget.
Here is over. Okay, Commissioner Ross.
Oh.
I had nothing.
So that expense is just carrying over.
Correct. Instead of it, it'll just roll. And so instead of me having to come back to you all next fiscal year for a budget amendment, I just wanted to go ahead and get it taken care of.
Okay. Any questions on that? If not, thank you very much, Ms. Becker. So we move into reports. I think before we get into St. John's Streetscape, St. John's Avenue Streetscape report on the concept for approval.
Yes, sir.
Item number 3.
Yes, so in the meeting, we have Mr. Chris Selesky with Ayers and Associates, and he is presenting the design concept. And after this, we'll be moving into final design. So, Chris, feel free to take it away. At this point, if it's Sunny or Courtney, it's the first PDF. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you, Mandy. So when we first began this process for reimagining St. John's Ave, I feel like it was a lifetime ago, but it turns out it was just October of last year. That process began with the Craft Beer Festival, if you remember correctly, and we garnered some feedback at that time as well. There was 2 other engagements that we garnered some public feedback. One was downtown, located at a local place, and then the other one was a online feedback in May that we tried to get as much feedback as we can through an online survey, and then just discussions on that online forum. From those 3 meetings and engagements and conversations, we've basically highlighted 3 key wants from the community that helped guide our decision making in the process of coming up with the concept that you see in front of you now. The first key want, and what we kept hearing, was to limit the negative effects of construction on surrounding businesses and try to condense that construction schedule as much as possible, which is more evident now than it has been since so that is one thing we're constantly doing as we move the project forward, is looking at how can we limit the time frame of construction and the expansion of construction. The other 2 things that people really wanted was room to walk downtown. The space between the back of curb and face of building is pretty narrow right now, that area to walk. So we're going to try to make that feel more open. There's a few things in the design we did to make that feel more open. And then the other thing was to celebrate the rich history of Palatka. So how can we pick up on some of the historic elements that are evident throughout Palatka, the Cypress Mill, rich music history, some of the murals that you guys have downtown, which there's a plethora of murals, that's for sure. So some of the takeaways that we've worked a few of those into the design, but some of the other key things that we did in design that are just good functional design improvements for the streetscape is to, first of all, we decided to maintain all of the existing parking on the streetscape. So we're not eliminating any parking by doing these proposed improvements. The other thing we'd like to do is narrow down the intersections and provide shorter crossing distances for pedestrians, which will improve public safety and slow down vehicles. The third thing we're going to be doing is adding those bump outs, which will take trees out of the sidewalk area and put them into the street. It allows for a wider area for people to walk, and it gives more room for trees to grow. So those are the main concepts. The next steps in the design process are for us to finalize the design and then move into construction documents. And then from construction documents, hopefully we can get into construction. That design construction document portion is expected to take anywhere from 3 to 6 months, depending on a couple of permitting applications. So that's that time frame. I can answer any questions if you have them.
Question. Can we build into the design, I guess, ballots or that will allow us to be able to put in so that we can close off streets without the need for law enforcement in some areas during the times in which we have festivals? Yep.
Removal of bollards, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Oh, so if you wanted to, if I understand you correctly, let's say there's a downtown event in the streetscape and you wanted to close off a street section with removable bollards, you want to work that into the design somewhere.
Are we able to do that? Because we have quite a few festivals and parades that come through on a regular basis on St. John's Avenue. And I think it'll be beneficial for us to kind of build that into the concept so that we can more easily block off the streets without necessarily having to use the resources of the police department in order to block some of the streets off when necessary.
Sure. Yes. We can definitely look at that. Jonathan, Mandy, do you guys have any comments on that one?
Making a note right now for us to look into it.
Okay.
Well,
I think that's a great idea.
you've got these brick paver crosswalks. You're going to have grade beams that anchor those, correct?
Yeah. Yep.
So wouldn't that be where you just drop your, while you're setting your grade beams, put your bollard bottoms in there, the extra receptacle?
Absolutely. They do come with some additional maintenance, and I'm not sure what they're like for vehicle rated, but we can look into that.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Is there anything else from the agency or from staff?
Just for clarity, we're talking about manual removable bollards, not the hydraulic or electric ones, correct?
I think we're gonna take the simplest route and the least expensive route.
Okay, I just throwing that there because there are some automated ones that can get pretty pricey.
Yeah, we got a limited budget, so.
Is this part of the project you were talking about, possibly adding in the pocket park in?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you've heard the conversation we had on that, Mr. Saluski.
Yep.
And so, is it possible, depending on if we're able to come up with an agreement, to be able to add that in?
Absolutely. And, you know, I'll agree that acquiring those little pocket parks, those little pieces of property for future green space and public space is very difficult in a downtown down the road, pun intended.
Right.
If you have an opportunity to do it, I feel like you should jump on it because they come up it's so rare. And I think the location of it would fit in well with the overall design of your streetscape. It's actually based on the intersection model we did here. It's just right over here. So you can imagine how that activity can be transferred down the road to that pocket park.
Next steps. What are our next steps from here?
The next steps will be to begin work and come back with final design at a later date.
And we look forward to hearing from you again. And we definitely want to thank you for your work that you and Aaron Associates have done on this project. And we definitely appreciate it. And I've gotten nothing but great feedback from the surveys that were taken at the Craft Beer Festival and just the amount of input that came from the community.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Okay, moving on to SNME report on CRA plan update. Back to you, Mr. Jones.
Thank you very much, Mayor Hill, Vice Mayor Brown, ladies and gentlemen of the Commission and the CRA Governing Board. If you would permit me to share my screen with you, I have a brief presentation summarizing the CRA plan update process. We can all see that screen. Awesome. All right. Whoop, let me go back here. So first off, I'd like to thank you on behalf of SNME for giving us the opportunity to update your community redevelopment plan. The opportunity to come up and visit the city last week and do some touring and also to sit down and talk with Ms. Tucker and Mr. Griffith. So we're going to briefly outline the process and kind of introduce the overall team to you today. SME is an interdisciplinary team. We have 36 offices throughout the Southeast United States. We specialize in community redevelopment, landscape architecture, urban design and placemaking, economic development, transportation planning, survey, civil engineering, environmental, and geotechnical. So we have all of the skills under one roof. I am currently centered in Orlando, Florida. That's the team that will be working with you. And here's the team members themselves. George Kramer is the principal in charge. And here you can see our redevelopment planning staff, our urban design, placemaking and implementation staff, our public involvement and community outreach, and our infrastructure and engineering staff. The community redevelopment plan update process. Here you see your 3 different CRA TIF districts comprising one large CRA. They started, the Central Business District one started in 1983. The subsequent North and South districts were established in 1984. Due to the timing of when these were established, you have a potential maximum operational time frame of 60 years for this area. So for this CRA area, you can operate for a full 60 years, so out to 2044. Here we have the timeline showing the overall process that's prescribed right now. It's about a 7-month production process. We're in August and September right now, the kickoff and data review session. Next will come a public involvement session, which will include a project-specific website being posted and also have an online survey, as well as a My Social Point interactive digital map where people will be able to go and leave their ideas and comments with regards to what they would like to see in the CRA area. And then we'll also have a public workshop as well, coupled with 2 virtual Zoom meetings. So we're going to have a day-long socially distanced workshop, and then we would have 2 follow-up Zoom meetings. November and December would be data synthesis, plan update. In November, December, CRA plan adoption scheduled for January and February of next year. So it's a very aggressive schedule. Here you can see the specific tasks outlined, tasks 1 through 6, with the kickoff, data collection, existing conditions and data analysis, public involvement, community redevelopment plan update, presentation of the CRA plan update, and then notice to the taxing authorities and final adoption. Total project schedule, approximately 7 months. Public input, we have 3 main, venues. One is stakeholder interviews, and we have a list of the different organizations that Palatka City staff has put together for us to contact and sit down and meet with these folks. We also have online input, which would include the project-specific website that would provide updates and schedules as to what meetings are coming up, what meetings have happened, and what transpired at those meetings. And then also a map markup feature, so that people will be able to mark up the maps online. And then the third component of our public input is the open house workshop. That'll be a day-long workshop in the city of Palatka, where people will be encouraged to walk in during any time of the day to take part in a educational primer about CRAs and how they function, and then to provide their input in a socially distanced manner. It'll be a flexible schedule, so you can come anytime during the day, and to participate, it'd take about 25 to 35 minutes. We'll have one regularly scheduled presentation at the end of the day, but as long as anyone walks in during the day, we'll be giving the presentation to whoever walks in at whatever time. So it's as flexible as possible to encourage as much public engagement as possible. We've already started the public engagement process, sitting down with Ms. Tucker and Mr. Griffith last week to talk about some of the improvements that have been made, some of the improvements that are planned, and here you can see the working base map that has some of those comments written down on it. The plan contents, what's going to be in the community redevelopment plan update. It's going to include the existing conditions summary, observed trends, the community vision based on the public input that we received from the stakeholders and from the CRA governing board, a strategic framework, goals and objectives and policies for the day-to-day administration of the CRA. We're also going to identify capital projects and specific programs with their costs and a schedule, a conceptual master plan so you can visually see how all of these improvements, both past improvements, planned improvements, and future improvements, how they all work together, a tax increment fund revenue projection for each one of the tax increment districts, and then a 5-year CRA budget worksheet so you can see where the numbers all line up, and that allows you to make decisions as to what you would like to see included in your different annual work plans. So you can pick and choose which projects you want to include in your annual work plans. One of the comments that the board made earlier this evening was that you can't work on a project unless it's in your CRA plan. And so the intent of the plan is to give you a wide range of projects and strategies to choose from when you're putting together your annual work plan. So you have the most flexibility available to accommodate opportunities as they present themselves. And let's see here. And here's my contact information. That's me, John Jones. You can reach me 24/7. That's my mobile number right there, the 321-200-3349, and my email address on the bottom. You can also reach me there 24/7 as well. So at this time, I'd like to open it up for any questions that you may have about the process. And once again, thank you for the opportunity to work for the city of Palatka.
Any questions from the agency?
And let me stop sharing the screen there. There we go.
No questions from the agency. We will go ahead and thank you again, Mr. Jones, for your presentation.
My pleasure, Mayor Hill.
It's a rare opportunity that you have no questions. And so again, great job. And again, we thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Moving on, we've got a couple reports I want to make sure. I saw Ms. Lynch here from SBDC. Ms. Lynch, do you have anything for us today?
Yeah, I had submitted the reports for the second and third quarter. Not sure if it was in the packet, I guess with all the changeover, trying to keep up with who needs to get what. Just an update as to what's been going on in Palatka and Putnam County as a whole. I gave this information to the county commissioners as well. There was approximately $40 million in PPP loans within Putnam County. PPP closed Saturday, so there's no more PPP applications that are being accepted. The economic injury disaster loan, also known as the EIDL loan, is still open. They have, however, stopped the advance that they were giving, the grants, the $1,000 per employee up to $10,000. Any questions that you may have, I'd be happy to answer. I just also want to let you know, Kevin Monahan has retired from the SBDC. His last date was June 30th. So he's gone on to greener pastures, I guess. Hope he's having a good time with it. But I'd be happy to answer any questions. I know it's a little wonky and I finally have my head above water with all this activity that's been going on with COVID. So
the background makes us all happy right now.
That's actually Rose Bay, Australia.
Any questions? And again, thank you very much. Have you got any insight from the county as it relates to help for businesses with
the $3,000 grant for small businesses went out and started today. So I believe there's a website on the county's website, and the chamber is also involved. I think it's putnam.force.com/small business grants /S/ or something like that, but it should be listed on the county's website. So that grant's $3,000. You have to submit a copy of your driver's license, a copy of your most recent 941 listing the number of employees that you have, your registration from Sunbiz to show that you're active. If you've got any licenses from the Department of Business and Professional Regulation, you'll have to submit a copy of that as well. And then an explanation of how your business was impacted during this COVID process.
Ms. Lynch.
Lynch, she was correct with the I just wanted to give the website for Putnam FL .com, and it's right there on the main page.
Thank you, Commissioner Campbell.
Thank you.
Is that in addition to what you communicated prior to saying what was on the county website? Is that in addition to what you first spoke about, not the one that was closed, but then you mentioned about a second one, and then you said something about the county resources that was available.
Right, so the economic injury disaster loan, that's the one you're asking about. That's through the SBA.
SBA. Do you have
Yeah.
an email or anything you can send to us on that, or do we just go to the SBA site?
Go to sba.gov.
SBA.gov/disaster, and it'll take you to the online application. It's a very quick 2-pager. Because they're all caught up, within the week or two, you'll be able to if you're approved, get your approval and get your money.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it.
So it's happening very quickly.
Any other comments, questions? Okay, thank you, Ms. Lynch.
Thank you, everybody.
Do we have a report from the Central Business District, Ms. Kemp?
We have nothing. Thank you.
Anything from North Tiff? Do we have Ms. Van Rensberger online with us today? Anybody from North Tiff? Don't see anything. South Tiff? Cut right. Anything from Cultural Resources?
Right at this time.
Okay, Mr. Holmes?
No, sir, I have nothing further.
Anything from the agency? Commissioner Borum? Commissioner Borum?
I have nothing.
Commissioner Campbell?
I have nothing.
Vice Mayor Brown? Shake or nod? She has nothing. Commissioner McCaskill?
I have nothing as well.
Mr. Rawls?
Just want to reiterate what Ms. Lynch was just saying regarding the grant from the county, and this is the first, hopefully, of several. I think Mr. Holmes was the one who pointed out that you get over 600 businesses in the city limits. So I don't know what resources the city would have or the CRA to reach out to those businesses, but I think you should make every effort to let them know that this is available. And obviously, we want to see as much participation as possible because there's no reason to give the money back to the federal government if we don't use it. I think that people should grab it as soon as they can and utilize it. And of course, it'll come back to us as well in the form of tax dollars.
Okay, we appreciate that. Thank you. And I have nothing further. Is there anything else from staff at this time?
No, sir.
Seeing nothing else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. There's a motion on the floor to adjourn. At this time, by consent, we will be adjourned. The time is 6:19. Again, thanks to everyone, and I look forward to the coming plans and also the adjustments. So please continue to social distance yourself, and also make sure we use positive handheld as we try to flatten this curve. So again, thank you to everyone on this panel today, and so we will be adjourning.
Have a good week.